Before there was time, there was stillness. Not silence as we know it, but a sacred hush. A deep, expectant pause. A held breath across eternity. A realm untouched by decay or dawn. There was no morning, for there had never been a night. No ticking clocks, no pulsing suns, no footprints in dust. There was only the presence. God. Not lonely, but complete. Not waiting, but sovereign. Not still, but moving within the perfection of his own being. In this divine fullness, creation was not born out of need, but out of love. A love so vast, so generous, that it spilled forth in galaxies and gravity, in stardust and soil, in breath and heartbeat. The story you are about to hear is not a myth. It is not merely poetry, though its rhythm sings in every language of light. It is not fable, though wisdom weaves through every sentence. It is not distant, it is yours. This is the beginning.
But at first there was no form, no shore, no starlight, no sound, only a void. The earth was without shape, empty, a swirling canvas yet untouched. Darkness stretched over the surface of the deep, not simply blackness, but mystery, unsearchable and vast. Beneath this cosmic veil lay the waters, ancient and waiting, thick with promise. Then presence. The Spirit of God hovered over the waters. The Hebrew word is ruach, meaning breath, wind, spirit. It suggests motion, not static power. Picture a bird hovering over her eggs, warming, guarding, giving life. The Spirit moved like that, intimate, attentive. And God spoke. Not a suggestion, not a murmur, a command that created. Let there be light. And there was light. Not the sun, that would come later. This was the first light, the essence of clarity and direction, the revealing of all that would follow. It streaked across the dark like a song being sung into a silent hall. God saw the light and called it good. Then he separated the light from the darkness. He named the light day and the darkness night. And so came the first evening and the first morning, the first day. God spoke again. Let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water. So the waters pulled apart. The waters above, misty, celestial, pregnant with rain, lifted into the heights. The waters below, settled, tamed by the boundaries now set. And in the middle, the rakia, the expanse, the sky, heaven. The heavens stretched like silk, azure blue, gentle winds. The first clouds drifted in celebration. The second day. God then gathered the waters under heaven to one place. Let dry ground appear. The land heaved upward. Continents shaped themselves beneath invisible hands. Mountains rose like reverent hands lifted in praise. Valleys sank with soft humility. Plateaus stretched beneath skies, blank canvases ready for life. And God named the dry ground earth, and the gathered waters he named the seas, and he saw that it was good, but he was not done. Let the earth sprout vegetation, and it did. Sprouts broke the skin of the soil like green whispers. Vines coiled upward with joy. Blossoms painted the meadows in every hue. Trees stretched toward the new sky, bearing fruit sweet and strange. Figs, olives, pomegranates, apples, dates. Seeds fell promising more. Grasses danced to breezes still learning their steps. Lilies bloomed by riverbeds. Ferns curled into shadowed spaces. Oak and cedar rooted themselves deep. The world smelled of new life and sacred growth. The third day. Then God turned his attention skyward. Let there be lights in the sky to separate the day from the night. And the sun rose in brilliance, a golden sovereign. Its rays warmed the fields and glittered over waters. The moon followed, a gentle queen cloaked in silver. She watched over the dreams of the night. And then stars. They arrived not as specks, but as choirs, millions of them, each one aflame, each one named. Constellations danced into being. The sky became a scroll of light and navigation. These were not mere ornaments. They marked time. They told seasons. They bore witness to stories yet untold. Evening passed. Morning came. The fourth day. God turned next to the waters and the sky. Let the waters teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth. And so they came, creatures of the deep, vast and strange. Leviathans swam in silence. Dolphins leapt like laughter. Schools of fish swirled in shimmering patterns. Octopus spread ink like painters. In the air, birds of every kind stretched wings. Eagles soared, finches chirped in twilight stillness. And God saw all he had made and blessed it. Be fruitful and multiply. The seas stirred with joy. The skies sang. The fifth day. Finally, the land would breathe. Let the earth bring forth living creatures. And it did. Elephants rumbled. Wolves howled. Ants marched with purpose. Giraffes craned toward high branches. Lions shook manes like fire. The earth buzzed with movement and meaning. Yet something was missing. God paused and then spoke with himself. Let us make mankind in our image, after our likeness. He did not form them with distant words. He formed them with his hands. From dust he sculpted a man. Limbs, sinews, heart. He leaned close and he breathed. Breath became life. Clay became consciousness. And the man opened his eyes. He was Adam.
The sixth day neared its end, but God was not finished. From the dust of the earth he had formed a man, Adam, shaped not only in function but in form, sculpted by divine intention. Every finger, every eyelash, every sinew bore the mark of design. But the man was still. Then God bent low, closer than the stars, closer than breath, and he breathed into Adam's nostrils the breath of life. That breath, the neshama, the sacred inhale, was not air, but spirit. It was the sound of God's presence entering man. And Adam became a living soul. He opened his eyes to a world not yet named. He blinked under skies he had never seen. His first breath was full of scent, flowers, earth, water. His ears caught the rustle of leaves, the chorus of birds. And before him stood the one who made him, not shadowed, not veiled, but present. God walked with Adam. He led him eastward, where he had planted a garden, not just any garden, a sacred place, Eden. Eden was not only beautiful, it was alive with intention, a sanctuary set apart, a place where heaven kissed the earth. 4 rivers flowed from Eden, splitting into the Pishon, Gihon, Tigris, and Euphrates. They watered the land and gave it pulse. The trees grew thick and tall. Their canopies formed dappled cathedrals of light. Fruits of every color and flavor hung low. The tree of life stood in the center, its roots deep, its leaves like emerald fire. And nearby the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Of this second tree God spoke with clarity. You may eat freely of every tree in the garden, but of this one you shall not eat. For in the day that you do, you shall surely die. This was not a trap. It was trust. Love, after all, requires a choice. Adam tended the garden. He named the animals. Each came to him without fear. The lion lowered his head beside him. The dove perched on his shoulder. And yet something stirred, something unsettled. Adam was not alone, but he was lonely. The animals were many, but none were like him. God saw it too. It is not good for the man to be alone. So he caused Adam to fall into a deep sleep, a slumber of light and mystery. And while Adam slept, God took a rib from his side, not his head to rule him, not his feet to be beneath him, but from his side, close to his heart. From it he formed woman, not as a copy, but as a counterpart, not as a shadow, but as a glory. When Adam awoke, he saw her and knew her, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She was Isha, woman, because she was taken out of Ish, man. Together they stood beneath the branches of the tree of life, unclothed and unashamed. They did not hide from each other. Their eyes met without fear, without comparison. There was no guilt, no striving, no roles to perform. Only presence. God blessed them. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and every living thing. And he rested. The 7th day came, and God declared it holy, not because he was weary, but because he was complete. He had given not only a world,
but communion. And Adam and Eve walked with God. In the cool of the day he would come, not as thunder, not as fire, but as a whisper of peace. They spoke to him as a child to a father, as a friend to a friend. There were no temples, no curtains, no separation, just presence, just Eden.
Chapter 3. The Serpent in the Garden. There was a corner of Eden where the trees grew close, their boughs heavy with fruit and moss, their roots drinking deep from ancient springs. It was a place where light came dappled, not direct, a quiet grove. Here the whispers of leaves carried more than the breeze. It was here the serpent came, not as a slithering threat, not at first. He moved through the brush like thought itself, elegant, subtle, shimmering. He did not hiss, but hummed, his voice silk over stone. More cunning than any beast the Lord had made, the serpent observed. He had watched Adam name the animals. He had watched the breath pass from God to man. He had watched as Eve was drawn from the side of sleep, radiant and new. He had listened to the command, "You shall not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil." But where God had spoken plainly, the serpent now spoke with pause, with twist. Eve wandered near the center of the garden one morning while Adam tended the fig trees. She traced the branches of the tree of life with her fingertips, marveling at how it shimmered even without wind. Its fruit glowed faintly, yet called for nothing. Then her gaze turned. The other tree. It did not shine, but it stirred something. And then the serpent's voice, low and curious, broke the stillness. Did God really say, "You must not eat from any tree in the garden"? Eve startled. She had heard all the animals. This voice was different. She turned and saw him, coiled along a low branch, eyes like liquid bronze. She hesitated, but answered, "We may eat from the trees of the garden, but from the tree in the middle of the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, God said, 'You shall not eat of it, nor touch it, or you will die.'" The serpent tilted his head. "You will not surely die." His words fell like dew, cool, misleading. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened. You will be like him. You will know good and evil. The words struck like a chord unresolved. Eve looked again at the tree. Its fruit was lovely. It looked nourishing. And the idea that it could make her wise sat sweet and sharp on her tongue. The serpent said no more. He did not need to. His seed had been planted, not in the ground, but in thought. She reached up. Her hand trembled only slightly. Her fingers closed around the fruit, smooth, cool. She pulled. It came loose easily. The world did not end. She bit, and something changed. The sweetness turned bitter at the core. Her vision did not blur. It sharpened too much. She felt the weight of the sky, the beat of her own heart too loudly, the closeness of her skin, the vulnerability of being seen. She gave the fruit to Adam, who had come near. He looked at her, not at the tree.
He trusted her. He bit, and everything fell. It was not lightning or fire, it was awareness. They looked at each other and for the first time felt shame. They turned away. They sewed fig leaves together, clumsy and rushed. Clothing, not for weather, but for hiding. The wind shifted. A sound, familiar and now feared. God was walking in the garden. They had walked with him before. They had run to him. Now they ran from him. They hid among the trees, their hearts pounding, and God called, "Adam, where are you?" He knew, of course, but the question was for Adam, not for him. "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, so I hid." "Who told you that you were naked?" God asked. No answer. "Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?" Adam replied, "The woman you put here with me, she gave me the fruit, and I ate." God turned to Eve. "What is this you have done?" And Eve said, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." Then God spoke, not in rage, but in sorrow, to the serpent. "Because you have done this, you are cursed above all livestock and wild animals. You will crawl on your belly and eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between her offspring and yours. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." To the woman, "I will greatly increase your pain in childbearing. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." To Adam, "Because you listened, cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles. By the sweat of your brow you will eat food until you return to the ground. For dust you are, and to dust you shall return." And then God did something unexpected. He made garments of skin for Adam and Eve, clothing not of leaves, but of sacrifice. He covered them. Then he said, "They have become like us, knowing good and evil. They must not be allowed to reach out and take from the tree of life and eat and live forever." And so they were sent out, east of Eden. Driven not by anger, but mercy. To remain would mean to live forever, broken, ashamed, and distant. So they walked, hand in hand, tears on cheeks. The gate behind them sealed. Cherubim, blazing, stood guard. And yet, here, even here, the story was not over. God still watched, still walked, still whispered.
Chapter 4. East of Eden. The Journey and the Promise. The path from Eden was not marked. There were no signs, no trail. Only the hush of exile and the distant weep of a garden once filled with joy. Adam and Eve did not look back, not because they didn't wish to, but because they couldn't. To look back would burn their hearts with longing. Ahead, the world opened wide. Vast stretches of untamed wilderness lay before them. Hills unwalked, skies unfamiliar, wind that no longer carried the soft fragrance of Eden, but the scent of stone, salt, and distance. They walked in silence. Their feet sank into earth they once ruled. Now they tread it as exiles. Adam's hand gripped the staff he had carved from a fallen limb. Eve held her garment close, unfamiliar with the cold. Behind them, Eden was sealed. Flames guarded the way, not punishment, but protection, lest they reach out, broken and marred, and take immortality without restoration. God's mercy had exiled them, a hard mercy, a holy exile. For in brokenness eternity is a curse. They journeyed eastward. The sun rose now not as a welcome, but as a taskmaster. Its heat bore down without canopy or cloud. Thorns pierced the soles of their feet. Sharp stones blooded their heels. The ground had changed. It groaned under the weight of curse. Where once flowers bloomed without tending, now Adam must dig, plow, bleed. The soil resisted, as if mourning its loss of purpose. Eve watched the wind curl through dust where once it sang through trees. She pressed her hands to her belly. Already her body changed. Already she carried the weight of life within her. Pain would come. She remembered God's words, and yet she held that life as promise, hope clothed in flesh. She would birth sorrow and redemption. At night they built a fire. Adam struck flint against stone until the spark became flame. They sat beside each other, no longer naked, but exposed in new ways. They spoke little, but in their silence there was unity. They had no other companions but each other. They shared memories, what Eden smelled like at dusk, how the deer once nuzzled their palms, the sound of God's footsteps in the garden. They wept together, not in despair, but in mourning. They were not lost, but they were longing. Time passed. They built shelter with branches and stone. They fashioned tools from flint and bone. The first rains came, and with them green again. New growth, not as effortless as before, but persistent. Adam learned how to plant, how to coax life from hard ground. He bent low and pressed seeds into earth like prayers. And in time they grew. Eve gave birth. Agony split through her, pain unlike anything known in Eden. But from it, a son, Cain, and then another, Abel. They grew as wild as the world, furious, strong, quick to laughter, quick to tears. Adam and Eve told them stories of the garden, of the animals, of God, and of the choice. Cain would listen with narrowed eyes, Abel with quiet awe. The firelight would flicker over their faces as Adam said, "We walked with him, not in dreams, but in the cool of day." And Eve would add, "Even now he is not far." Though Eden was lost, the presence of God was not. In dreams he still came. In moments of silence they felt him, not as before,
not in fullness, but as whisper. God was not done. The promise stood still. One would come, a child, a seed, who would crush the head of the serpent. That prophecy burned brighter than the sun. When storms came, they clung to it. When Cain raged, they remembered it. When Abel wept, they repeated it. Hope had become their inheritance. Adam stood one evening under a tree not yet felled. The stars blinked overhead. He remembered the stars of Eden. He remembered the names he gave the animals. He remembered the light. He whispered, "Forgive me." And he believed, though faintly, that he was. Eve pressed her hand to his, and they stood together, bathed in starlight and regret, but also in faith. And so began the long story of humanity, not in glory, but in dust, not in crowns, but in curse. Yet even here, especially here, God's plan unfolded. In soil turned by pain, in wombs bearing promise, in hearts that remembered Eden, a garden once lost, a presence once close, a love that would not let go, and a whisper growing louder that one would come who would walk with man again, not beside a tree in Eden, but upon a tree at Calvary. But that part of the story was still to come.
Chapter 5. Echoes in the Dust. Time marched forward, and the landscape around them grew familiar, though never entirely gentle. East of Eden, Adam and Eve lived in rhythm with the earth, a rhythm that beat with toil, with hunger, with love, and with loss. Cain and Abel grew quickly, their legs strong from chasing each other across hills and stones, their arms sure from carrying wood, from gathering fruit, from working side by side with their father in the fields. But as the boys grew, so did differences, not just of strength or skill, but of spirit. Cain tilled the soil. He loved the firmness of it, the weight in his hands, the crunch of roots, the heat of the sun, the smell of dust rising from turned earth. But within him simmered something deeper, a hunger not just for crops, but for approval. Abel tended flocks. He walked quietly, listening for the bleat of lambs, the rustle of wind through pasture. He found joy in care, peace in silence. His heart bent toward worship. Adam and Eve watched their sons with wonder and sometimes with fear. The world outside Eden was good in its own way, but it bore sharp edges. It did not nurture passivity. In time, both sons brought offerings to the Lord. Cain from the fruit of the ground, Abel from the firstborn of his flock, with fat portions. And the Lord looked with favor on Abel's offering, but on Cain's he did not. The air thickened with silence. Cain's face fell. The fire of jealousy burned bright behind his eyes. God spoke to him, not in wrath, but in warning. "Why are you angry?
why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. But Cain turned inward. He brooded. He whispered to Abel, "Come with me to the field." And there, with the weight of earth still underfoot, with the wind carrying no alarm, Cain struck his brother, and the dust drank the blood of the first death. Abel's body lay still, his eyes open to the sky. And in that silence creation mourned. God spoke again, "Cain, where is your brother?" Abel answered, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" The lie stung, but truth thundered from heaven. "Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." And so Cain was cursed, not because God abandoned him, but because Cain turned from his presence. He wandered farther east, a builder of cities, yet forever restless, a man with a mark, not for shame, but for mercy. Even in judgment, God protected him. Eve wept for Abel, for Cain, for all that had been lost. Adam stood by her, weathered, silent, his hands calloused, his heart worn thin. They had seen creation and fall, glory and grief, but hope somehow lingered. A third son was born, Seth, and with him renewal, a flicker of restoration, a remnant of the promise. Through Seth's line would come Enosh, and in those days people began to call on the name of the Lord. Not just remember him, but seek him. And the story stretched onward, through valleys and altars, through tents and thrones. The dust held sorrow, but also seeds. And the breath of God, once given in Eden, still moved across the earth, still whispering, still waiting, for one who would not just remember Eden, but restore it.
Reflections beneath the stars. From silence to speech, from darkness to dawn, from garden to exile, the story of Eden is not only the beginning of creation, but the beginning of every heart that wonders why the world is as it is, and what it was meant to be. Adam and Eve walked with God, and then they walked away. But though they were cast out of Eden, they were never cast out of love. This tale, rich with beauty and brokenness, teaches us much. That all life begins not by accident, but by divine breath. That love is rooted in freedom, and even freedom can be misused. That choices carry weight, but grace is never far behind. That creation was made for harmony between God, humanity, and the world, and that even in our wandering, the presence of God still whispers. Eden may be behind us, but the longing for Eden is not.
It lives in lullabies, in still nights, in hearts that ache for peace and presence. As you rest tonight, remember, you are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are dust, yes, but dust held in the breath of God. And the story is just beginning. Until next time, sleep well. Let the first story cradle your dreams, and return to the word that was in the beginning.